So a lot of times we'll have customers that come to us and we'll put together a go-to-market strategy for them. But unfortunately, no matter how strong that is, it's the whole goal of a go-to-market strategy is how we're going to get you in front of a customer. It's we'll provide the messaging, the best methods of what channels to use, what's to say, who to target. We'll actually give you a list of accounts that are really suited to your product, the ICP. But it's when you get there, it's when you got that demo booked in your calendar. That's your time to shine. And you need reps or you need people talking to the customer who understand who they're speaking to. It's something that's overlooked so often. And the problem is I've sat on calls, so even this week I've sat on 2 calls where you can tell that the person speaking to you doesn't really know what they're talking about. And you just lose all credibility. You lose all credibility. We actually did a brilliant experiment for a client over the summer. So the client came to us and they had a huge problem with, they were booking demos okay, but the demos weren't converting to pipeline. And they came to us, we sat down, we strategized with them, but one of the along the way, we actually listened to some of their calls, and they had 3 reps working for them. And all the reps were, in their own way, were able to communicate quite well with the prospects. The calls, were relatively good rapport was being built. But you could tell whenever the prospect or the client asked a technical question or something a bit out of the ordinary or off script, they went blank. The sales rep went blank, and you could tell they tried to deflect. But what that does is it just loses all credibility. So then any future questions or queries, the prospects just kind of sort of switched off a bit. And I see it myself. I've sold to engineers for years, and there's already a suspicion at the beginning that you're not going to really understand what you're talking about. So the whole point is not to validate that suspicion. What we did was we brought the team in, and for 1 week, each afternoon, we put aside time that we either brought a guest speaker in who was an engineer, or else we immersed these guys, the 3 reps, in the world of their end user for a few hours each day. And what it did was it allowed them to understand what their end users, what the prospect would be using their tools for, how it was helping them, what a typical day looked like for an engineer, what are the priorities that they have, they're so different than what the priorities that a salesperson would have. But by the end of that week, each of those reps was able to tell so much more about who they were speaking to on these calls. It allowed them to improve their outreach, their sales outreach, their emails, because they were able to talk about stuff more relevant. It allowed them to build rapport much better on these discovery calls and ask better questions. And I think that overall, within 30 to 60 days of that, they saw a huge uptick in the size of the deals went up about 60%. The reply rate for their cold outreach went up from about 1.2 to 3.8. So there's huge improvements across the board, and that's only quite recently. We'll have better details or better metrics over the coming months. But the significant change in performance based on one thing is understanding who you're speaking to. It seems like an obvious thing, but honestly, more often than not, the person doesn't.